This is the Real Change Wilmington podcast, episode 4, inside Sugartree Ministries and Our Father's Kitchen, with our guest today, Lee Sandlin.
I've always said, if somebody wants to disagree with us or myself philosophically, theologically, and all the information is known, we can have that disagreement.
Sure.
Like enablement is a great conversation.
Yeah.
It's a great enablement, to do or not to do, right? That is the question. It's a great question, but only if we're both dealing from the same information.
What's going on, everybody? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington podcast, Dustin Pierce, with my co-host,
Emily Spencer.
As always. She's getting better with her inflection of her tone here.
Can't let them know that I feel any emotion ever.
So we have a pretty exciting podcast for you guys today, but before we jump into that, Emily, how has your week been?
It's been great. I mean, celebrating the holidays and all that. We went to a Cincinnati Cyclones game on New Year's Eve, and we're going to another one this coming Saturday. My husband and I really like hockey.
Nice. And do you like hockey more, or do you like seeing grown men fight more?
Well, I like it all. When we first started going, we were going because my mother-in-law was like, you'll get to see grown men beat each other up. And we were like, all right, you go, and they start fighting, and the whole crowd, they go wild. And that's a lot of fun. But from going to quite a few Cyclones games over the last year, we've really gotten into the sport of hockey itself.
Nice.
And we really like it. We really got into it on New Year's Eve. We watched someone get their tooth knocked out, and then the ref didn't do anything about it.
Nice.
What about you? How's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I got some new chicks this week, some baby chicks. Not ladies, unfortunately, the baby chicks. So I got them early, so that way they could grow in the winter time here in the early spring, and then hopefully be laying some eggs in the summer. So excited for that. Have some green layers, some dark brown layers, and some everyday layers. So pretty excited about that. They're in my guest room right now, peeping away, and it's fun to see the little chicks grow up.
Little peepers.
Yeah. So something cool happened to me last week. I was going to the library to fax a document, and I got there before it opened. And as I was standing outside, there was a person who looked homeless standing next to me, trying to get in the library as well. And I had a dilemma of, do I engage and talk to this person or just stand there and do my business and leave? So I asked them where they're from, and they told me out of town. And so my first assumption was that, oh boy, here's one of those people who are being shipped in from out of town because of Our Father's Kitchen, which is the story that everyone hears in town. So that was one of my initial thoughts, but I wanted to challenge that. So I stood there awkwardly for a few minutes and forced myself to ask them, so what was so bad about their town that they came to Wilmington? And they told me that they're actually escaping a domestic abuse situation. Their partner was, I guess, threatening to hurt them, and so was their partner's family. So they were escaping that to get to here in Wilmington, and that touched me. And I since knowing about the resources that are available in town because of what we're doing here at Real Change Wilmington, I directed them to Alternatives to Violence on Main Street that they hadn't heard about, and hopefully they're able to connect with them and get the help they need to get out of that relationship and start building a life and thriving here in Wilmington, wherever they end up in the future. So that was pretty cool, something positive for the podcast and what we're doing here.
He's not doing it just for the podcast.
I'm only being nice to people to talk about on the podcast.
And to insert your single status.
My single status?
Yeah, you were like, I got new chicks, not ladies.
Oh yeah, so I am very, very single, unfortunately. But if you're listening out there and you are swayed by the sound of my voice.
You want to know what he looks like? There's a billboard on 68.
Oh gosh, okay, that's gonna get cut from the podcast. So this week, I am so excited for our podcast today. This is one that I've been looking forward to for a really long time, and it's really long. So if you are listening to this, I would say hit pause until you're driving to Cincinnati and back, or Columbus and back, when you have a good 2 hours, an hour to an hour from or back.
Or if you're cleaning your whole house.
Or if you're cleaning your whole house. I don't know why it would take you 2 hours for, but I guess if you're Emily.
I'm a lazy person, I guess.
Yeah, but it's really good. We come at it from a critical view, I would say. So we're just like most people in Wilmington, where we drive past Our Father's Kitchen and we we get information from what we see and what we hear in the community. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to actually talk to Lee and see what are they all about and clear up some of the misconceptions, if there are any, or maybe just validate some of the things that are out there. But we wanted to hear it from him. So before we interview, we had some thoughts and feelings, and afterwards, I think they changed for both of us. Emily, what were some of your thoughts and feelings before going into the podcast and then after talking to Lee?
So we talk about it a lot in the podcast, is that I'm on social media, that's my generation's thing. And a lot of the conceptions that I had about Our Father's Kitchen came from social media. And much like modern news, social media feeds on negative energy. So I thought what everybody thinks, that they're drug addicts there, that they enable, that they don't really care about the people coming through. They just give them a hot meal and say, whatever you're doing, that's your business.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of negativity on social media, especially about Our Father's Kitchen. So one of my fears going into the podcast is that I wasn't going to really agree with Lee theologically. I wasn't going to like him very much. But my opinions on Lee have changed, not because he came in here and was very charming and winsome and spoke about love and all of this, but because of who he is and his character, and actually hearing what he does really helped me to have a new perspective on Lee, a new appreciation for him. So I'm not trying to put that on the listeners. Please listen to the podcast and form your own opinions. At one point, Lee says, hey, he doesn't mind being hated, but he would rather be hated for who he is and not for the misconceptions people have about him.
Very admirable.
Yeah. So some of the things we talk about, Emily, do you want to kind of go over those?
Yeah, like Dustin said, we came at this at a very critical view. We actually sat down and thought about how we were going to ask the question so we didn't come off as attacking or totally biased, that we're trying to get everybody to love Sugartree. Because, that's just not... You're going to have your own opinion, no matter what. We asked him things about, the drug use, or if there is any at Sugartree, how they handle public safety, are they going to move their building, what kind of people come through and what kind of services do they offer those people, their leadership roles and hierarchy, and if they're shipping people in. And we sat down and we asked Lee, what are improvements that you want to see come from this ministry that you're running? And he admitted, there's nobody perfect. And that was something that I really appreciated about him.
Yeah, just his vulnerability was really admirable and helps, at least I think you and I connect with him, and hopefully people listening will connect with him as well because of that. I was also surprised to learn about his connection with law enforcement and his concern for the public safety and things that he has done and investments that he's made to respond to the public for everyone's safety. Even though he's passionate about loving everybody and focused on his mission, he seems to still be responsive to the feedback that he's getting. So again, we're gonna run about 2 hours here today, so we don't want to talk too long. We want to jump into the podcast. So our hopes for this episode are that, again, you would have an informed opinion on who Lee is, what Sugartree Ministry is, and what Our Father's Kitchen is. And if you still hate him after that, that's fine, but at least you hate him for all the right reasons. So with that,
get some popcorn, get your cleaning bucket, or get in that car.
Yeah, let's bring in Lee. Lee, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here. Sounds like you had a pretty busy day so far.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate making the time. So we decided to have you on today because we are trying to see if you are, as you, meaning you in the Sugartree Ministries, is as bad as people say that it is on social media in the community,
Right.
or if there's more to the story, and if so, what can the community do to help you make real change?
Sure.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of things, why don't you tell us who Lee Sandlin is before Sugartree Ministries?
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, Lee Sandlin, born and raised, Lebanon, Ohio. I grew up in abject poverty. Parents of, my dad, alcoholic. Mom had some, issues as well. And single parent household. My mom did a great job raising us, but poor. My family, she inherited a farmland, but not enough to build a house on it. And so we had a chicken coop that was converted into a home. We had an outhouse till I was 5. You could see the outside from the inside. We'd have running water in the winter when it froze, things like that. And so but she made it work. And so, praise God for my mom, but, she's a tough cookie. But, but I grew up in poverty, grew up around addiction, grew up with, a lot of people in my family. My father was gone because, like I said, of addiction. He popped in and out, but his alcoholism, still controlled him. And so, I grew up a very angry, bitter kid, violent kid, and played sports, tried to sublimate my violence with athletics, and it worked out pretty well, but it all left me empty, broken, left me without any kind of hope. You had friends, did okay at sports, was pretty good, and but still found myself really, really empty inside. And so that void, when I encountered Jesus, was filled, and he instantaneously actually took all that anger and violence away from me and gave me a purpose. And my purpose was to go and love and help the hurt, broken, and lost. So when I became a Christian, I was 18. I immediately jumped into youth ministry, jumped into missionary work, jumped into evangelism and outreach, and started working with places like Hope House in Middletown and Sugartree here in Wilmington and stuff like that, and just got involved and put my hand in the dirt and hand in the plow and never looked back. And so I'm a trainer by trade because it always helped me, and the gym was always an outlet for me. And so the gym gives me a chance. I still work at a gym, still work another job on top of Sugartree, still working, and I've always worked another job because in ministry I've always wanted to be about the ministry and the purpose and not be about money. So I took another job because it always allowed me to work my own schedule, so I could schedule clients and all that. But then when the day was over, and I went to the gym at like 5 a.m, still do. I'm still there every morning, super early. I train people to make money, but then I don't have to switch much pressure on the ministry to kind of pay my way, And for a long time, I paid my dues, for 20 plus years. I did volunteer ministry, that, and then it wasn't until recently that I, took the job as director at the ministry, and now I get a salary from the ministry. But still, me working another job allows me not to have to put the demand on the ministry. And I always say that every dollar we save at the ministry is more money that we can use to help, people get better.
That's pretty admirable. I mean, that's like what the Apostle Paul did. Is he had a side job and never took money from his people that he was serving. So there is something to admire about that for sure. Yeah,
and so the ministry allows me to be there because there's always more hours of the day. So getting paid from the ministry does help me be there because other than that I couldn't afford. But for a lot of years I volunteered at Sugartree for 20 years before I took over as director. And I've always worked at my church. Fellowship of Praise. We love Pastor Matt and the family out there. Love that they support the ministry greatly, but I've always volunteered at the church still, and I still count money. I've done youth ministry there and so that. So I've always been in ministry, but my other job allows me to afford to not have to worry about my time or I can pay my bills, but I can still do ministry.
Yeah. It makes it sustainable a bit too.
Yes, So if something happened, like for some reason the ministry we had to cut budget or something like that, I could work more. So it always is kind of that fail safe there.
Yeah.
So the impetus isn't on the money.
Can you tell the story of how you became a Christian? You said it was pretty profound. Shift in your life.
So I actually was in study hall with a girl who was a Christian and
high school.
We started dating and things like that, and she invited me to church, and and growing up in poverty and with addiction in my life and that, not me, but my family and that. A lot of arguments, a lot of anger with that. So I grew up angry at the world. My dad left when I was a kid, and he would always come back in and out. And he and I had a very contentious relationship. So I had a lot of anger and a lot of bitterness, and so I would fight at the drop of a hat. I got scars where I punched people through windows. So I was a very angry kid. And right before I was dating this girl, and we'd been going to church and with that. And I was 18, and we had got into a fight with a guy. He did a cul-de-sac. He said punched through a car window, cut my whole arm open, wanted to destroy the world, and it was time to get it up. It was time to give up.
Yeah.
Time to lay it all down. I knew I wasn't going to make it this way. I was 18. I could be responsible.
Sure. And
so I went to a crusade with a friend of mine, and went to the altar, gave my life to Jesus. He took all that anger and bitterness and gave me purpose and showed me unconditional love. And from then on out, it was game on. It was the first miracle I encountered in my life. That anger just got taken away. I haven't really gotten any kind of anger since. No rage for going on 1,000,000 years right now. So yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what's the story of Sugartree Ministry? How did it get started? What does the leadership team look like? And what is there in your day-to-day involvement?
Sure. So Al Willoughby when he was in college, he had a coffee shop and in college, so that loved music and everything like that. And so he grew up in Washington Courthouse. He played music, and so when he came to Wilmington, they started Joe's Java. They started a game room. It was it wasn't in the same place. We moved a couple times, but started a game room. And when they moved over on Sugartree, that's why we're Sugartree. No fancy name, Sugartree Street. They moved over there. They played music and all that. But people started gathering around, and they were Christian folk, and so they wanted to help people. Started serving meals, helping people out and all that. And then that kind of grew. John Foster and this ministry grew, and they started helping more people. And eventually moved over where we are now, on the 180 East Main. And we always had the coffee shop, always had the concerts and all that, but we started serving meals, and it kind of grew. And then the needs of the community, DHL, went out and all that. All of a sudden there was this need for even more help. And, the ministry just grew from there. And so now it has went from a, music coffee venue that did outreach ministry and all that, to now we are, almost entirely focused on, street outreach and then benevolence and helping the poor and the addicted and the mentally ill get better and, heal and kind of get better in life and move forward.
So did it start as a for-profit concert venue? And
it's always been a nonprofit.
Always been a nonprofit with a ministry bent to it?
But yes, with ministry. Yeah, Jesus has always been the center of the ministry.
Gotcha.
Was Joe's Java always on donation?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah. So, because it's a nonprofit, you can't sell anything. You can give it away or you can take a donation. So, yeah. Yep.
Neat.
What's the current leadership like?
So I'm the director of the ministry. And then I have a handful of guys that run the shelter, that run our landscaping business, that help out and run that. But then I have about 10 guys that live with us full time that come from homelessness and addiction, that they do the day to day. They clean, they run the shelter. And so I have a leadership team of a handful of guys, but our day-to-day operations are ran by guys who were homeless or addicted, got healed, got better and stuff like that, and so God gave them a home with us, and so now they live with us full time and they do the work of the ministry.
Okay, yeah, because I actually did volunteer once, and I never met you, but I wasn't sure how it was organized, because when I volunteered, I went in. One of the guys, I guess you're probably talking about, led me around to help. He was very, very friendly guy.
Yeah.
So that's okay. It's good to know how it's structured then.
Yeah, because we run 24/7.
Yeah.
Nobody could be there, all the time, but I am on call 24/7. I'm the only administrator, and so the idea is that every phone call from the ministry goes straight to my cell phone. So I answer all questions, do all over. My guys just do the work, but I do all the organizational stuff and answer all the questions, so that and give permission and do all that. So my phone rings 24/7. I answer all the time.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and I actually sleep with my phone in my hand, so it'll wake me up. Yeah, because we think that all needs matter. You know what I'm saying, in that capacity. That if somebody needs something, 3 a.m., 3 p.m. And I've always asked myself as a Christian, am I the same person at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m.? So we believe that it's you always try to offer people the same level of service, because there's no time frame on a crisis. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. Christmas Eve, there was a house fire, and then with all the frozen pipes and all that. So on Christmas Eve, I was helping people that were in a house fire, and then I was putting people in a hotel when their pipes burst and all that. So I was actually at 4 a.m. calling hotels, trying to put families in hotels at 4 in the morning on Christmas morning. You know what I'm saying? Because the idea is that, just because it's Christmas morning, they don't, that crisis happened. I don't get, it's not, my inconvenience is worth far less than their survival and their safety. And so we always put the priority on people and their needs. And so I was calling around, and of all the people in Wilmington, I got one to finally answer. And then we were able to put them in hotels that morning. So their kids wouldn't be freezing to death without heat. You know what I'm saying? But the idea is that is what we are about, is to serving the needs of people, irrespective of circumstance or personage.
I think we read that people were able to be housed at Sugartree Ministries during the cold weather. Is that
correct? Yeah. So anytime it's below 35 degrees, we run a warming shelter. So we could be open. We're open 24/7. We're doing something 24/7. But whenever there's below 35 degrees, we open our doors for anybody in the community or beyond that needs to get out of the cold.
So it wasn't just people in your ministry, but just anybody who
Could have
was
been
like
anybody. Could have been anybody.
down the luck on that day.
Yeah, and part of the controversy of Sugartree Ministries is that we don't discriminate against condition. And so, the only condition that you need is you to have a need.
And we're going to get into some, have you responded to some controversy?
Sure, yeah.
I think that it's super admirable that your ministry and your help doesn't stop for the holiday. It doesn't stop because it's a Sunday.
We never stop.
That's nice.
Yeah, it'd be very hypocritical to tell somebody that you love them unconditionally, but then say, hey, we're off on Sundays, or we're not working today, or sorry you had this crisis right now. If we are able, we will serve everybody. And I tell people all the time is that when people call me, people get upset. I'm not trying to vet you because I'm trying to figure out whether you're worthy or not. It's whether we can. Trust me, I'm looking for, if I can say yes to the help, then we will help. You know what I'm saying? You're always praying for that ability, and God's blessed us because more often than not, we can help, irrespective of the circumstance.
It sounds like you are stretched pretty thin. Like,
we work hard.
Yeah.
Because I think people, the financial, people challenge our finances about that. We run a budget, it's grown because of the inflation and that. We spend a lot more money now. But because of volunteerism, donations, stuff like that, for about $300,000 a year, we pump out millions of dollars of goods and services into the community. But it's all because we have my guys volunteer, the guys that live with us volunteer. You're saying people in the community donate. We get everything we get from private donations from Kroger and other places donate their stuff, so, because the community draws together, we have 30 churches that donate, their time and energy, and they make the meals. And so, once again, because the community is involved, we can do miracles because the idea is that whatever dollar somebody gives, you can multiply it 5 and 10-fold because a lot of the work's being done for free.
Yeah. Is there how long have you been with the ministry again?
5 years.
5 years.
I've been volunteer for 20, but director for about 5.
Okay. Do you have a plan, or is there like a way to maybe pass some of that responsibility off to other people that you said are the guys in the house?
Sure.
Building them up, or is that something you're doing? Or
discipleship is always a thing, right?
Uh-huh.
But the issue we have, and just being honest, is that when people come from the streets, they come from brokenness and addiction and homelessness, there is this long process. We talk about you can't put a time frame on healing. It just doesn't work. You can't look at, everybody's different. There's nuance to healing, right? This person is, this person, went through this, person went through that, the healing process. And so I'm very happy that my guys are there every day and serve. But, they're not quite at the point of doing human resource, administration, things like that. And, but the plan is someday that we would love to have that. Right now, we don't have the finances just to, hire somebody to do all those things. So right now, I'm the one doing all those things. But yes, the plan is always to, just like when Al found me, I'm saying the plan is that, eventually that somebody would be trained to do some of those things. And I hire a part-time social worker. We pay her, a little bit of a small salary. So there's some other things that, we do. And I do have a bookkeeper. Thank God for her. She's fantastic, but she works she volunteers. Mm-hmm. That would be something that the finances would be something that would be impossible without her. And so because of the goodness of people and because of the volunteerism and the belief in what God's called us to, we always have exactly what we need. But yeah, the plan would be to train more people, obviously, because as we grow, you need more people.
So you were talking about the men that volunteer
Mm-hmm.
that stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Is it always the same? Has it been the same men for a while?
No, it has grown. We've had some move on, right? And so the goal is that, and we also have to move people forward, yeah. Some have passed away, unfortunately. Some have moved on to other places. But it always seems like God replaces those folks. But yes, that core of guys has been the same for me. And I wouldn't trade them for the world. But then we have some other people that come in and do, they clean, they run the door and so that. Yeah, so those guys do change periodically.
And I'm sure watching them and helping them have a purpose. Helps them
everything.
Battle, for lack of better, their personal demons.
Yep. Yeah, we always talk about, so my theory on, one of the things is that everybody talks about work. And my theory on work has always been that giving people purpose, what I'm saying, it helps them heal, it helps them have something to do. I don't need people to work, because if I wanted somebody to work and do a job, I would just, try to pay something. The idea is that we believe that work and having purpose is essential to healing. to give back, to ultimately be somebody who was a receiver or a taker, whatever you want to call them, so that to being somebody that can be a giver.
Yes.
And I think that transition is from the healing process.
Yes.
Right. And so giving them the opportunity to give back, I think helps them heal. And so I don't need them because I need them to work. I love watching them do it because they begin to become givers. And when they become givers, God opens their eyes, and it changes their whole perspective on life. And that's when they begin to grow and get better. You can see that when they run away from their old lifestyle of becoming consumers to becoming givers, nothing like it. It's a miracle like no other. I tell people all the time that there are two great miracles in life. One where Jesus saved our souls on the cross. Number two, when God takes enemies and makes them friends. You know what I'm saying? People who used to hate the ministry, who would be served the ministry, they're guys that we've seen that have, trashed the place, that have been angry, that have tried to fight us and all that. And all of a sudden now they're serving dinner and sweeping up and loving on people. You know what I'm saying? To see that I think it's a miracle. It's a second only to the salvation of the cross. It's like the second greatest miracle is when people go from being enemies to being friends.
I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that one thing that I hear in the community, and maybe what I was personally going to ask you as well, is what you say your mission is to love people. Like, what does that look like? Is it like just we feed them and we like quote unquote enable them, or do we really want to love them in a way that they can be self-sufficient and givers?
Yeah, nobody's gonna like my answer when I say that when I hear the word enabled, it means enable people to get better.
Right.
That's my answer. But to me, enabling. So this is going to be a great segment here, and I love this whole discussion. The UN, I think it was in the early '60s. I could be wrong. They determined what was a basic human right. The UN got together and said, what does it mean to be? What are basic human rights? What is everybody, worthy of, right? And that's where we get the food, water, air, and shelter. Right, and so I tell people that if you want to boil our ministry down even further from the Christ-centered street ministry, it's food, water, air, shelter, and Jesus. Right, that's all we offer. That's all we want to offer. That's what we do. Right, but we believe that every single human being, irrespective of what they've done, where they've been, where they've come from, where they've fallen from, whatever they've done, is worthy of food, water, air, shelter, Jesus. We believe they are worthy of those things. So when we talk about enablement would be giving somebody something that they could hurt themselves or the community or somebody with. Right? If I know somebody's a drug addict and I give them $100, I know they're going to do something bad with it, right? I don't give people money. But no one's ever going to pressure me to the point where I will stop giving food, water, air, and shelter and Jesus to every single person, because we believe that no matter where you've gone, what you've done, how far where you come from, that it's decent humanity to give those things to people. So when you talk about enablement would be giving somebody something where they could, harm themselves or others with. But we don't believe anybody can fall below, not deserving food, water, air, and shelter. So this idea of enablement to me would be when people give things to people that they can do something with. Yeah, we don't do any of that. I don't mess with that at all. You know what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time when people they say, well, this person, we build a shelter so people live in the shelter, right? We have served dinner. So the idea is that we are purposely trying to bring people in, to love on them and to help them with that. Now, will every person receive help? Will everybody change? No, but no one will ever cause me to treat somebody with less than basic humanity and dignity.
I think that's a good answer to flesh out that topic of enablement. I know I wanted to section this to get to community feedback later on, but I think it would be more appropriate just to add that section in now. So one of the things that I hear in the community is that why do you not have a needs-based policy for giving? So, for instance, people have the anecdotal stories of, hey, I know my neighbor sometimes comes into Sugartree to go grocery shopping, but she has a job. She could get her own food. Sure. So maybe that's a different flavor of enablement, or she's bad up her budget, so she abuses your ministry, basically.
Sure. And in a humanitarian sense, right? There is this desire to quantify everything, right? And if we want to be a humanitarian organization, we would be. You know what I'm saying? There is a humanitarian aspect to our ministry, right? But we are a Christian ministry, right? So when we open our doors, it's God's house. You know what I'm saying? Everything that we have is given to us by God. The idea is that we are not trying to part and parcel. People are welcome in, irrespective of what they've done or where they've been. So the idea is that we are serving and loving them, not trying to count them. Not trying to create a log of people like to accuse them of taking too much or something like that. You know, we're opening the door to allow people to come in and get what they need. If people steal, that's on them, right? If people come in and they take from, the idea is they have to deal with their own conscience.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The idea is I'm there to love them and to serve them and to open the storehouse and to share what God's given with us. But we are there because they are family. They're brothers and sisters. You know, we love them, and so we are going to serve them. I never want to be in a position where I'm counting numbers or accusing people of, why are you here asking questions? I'm simply opening God's house to say, you are welcome here, and we want to have you. You know what I'm saying? The idea is that people have to battle their own conscience. Their own conscience if they want to deal with. If they're there for the wrong reasons, that's between them and God. I will be judged on my lack of generosity. They'll be judged on their theft.
That's a decent answer, sure.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like this, we're opening God's house, and so we are Christian. I am not there to accuse them. I'm not there to, I'm saying, I'm not their judge, jury, executioner, criterion. I am simply opening the doors and to love on people and to let them enjoy what God's given us.
So it sounds like you don't view people as a label. You don't view them as homeless,
Not
as drug
quantifying,
addicts,
yeah.
whatever.
Not
People
quantifying.
are people.
Yeah, not quantifying them. And I'm not going to keep a list or a log where I'm trying to figure out, hey, why are you here? What do you know what I'm saying? Like, you need, people all the time will call me and they'll go like, hey, what do I need to bring? And I'm like, bring yourself. This is God's house. His table's big enough. His shelves are wide enough. And I can tell you one thing that people coming from a humanitarian sense won't understand, but we do. The more we give, the more he gives back. We are so much more blessed when we give without condition than we've ever been when you try to, parcel everything and count everything out.
Yeah. And we'll get into some more community
Sure.
feedback.
Sure.
But the next thing I wanted to talk about is, and you mentioned this a bit before we started recording, but how connected are you with other community resources? So for example, if someone came to you with an addiction issue, would you seek to treat that in-house, or would you connect them with a solution provider like Talbot Solutions or Brightview?
Sure. So we are, I consider some folks in those organizations are my best friends. You know what I'm saying? And so what I determined a long time when I took over as director of Sugartree was to build bridges, right? So the reason I call ourselves a war zone triage is, what does a triage do? A triage assesses, treats to the point that somebody doesn't die, right? We always say we're trying to keep people alive long enough to find hope, right? But we're not experts at those things, right? We believe Jesus is the answer. But we also believe Jesus gives us wisdom and discernment, right? And so one of the things I did when I took over as director is we partner with every agency. I can list them all out to you. So somebody comes to us, we give them food, water, air, shelter, and we know because of the prefrontal cortex damage and the dopamine deficits. When you see people with mental illness or addictions like that, their ability to make decisions becomes really poor. They become very, flesh centric and not the instant gratification of that. So when we get people stable, they make better decisions. So part of our goal is to get them into a peaceful place, a place where they can make good decisions, get them fed, house, shelter, get them off the street. And then we partner with other agencies. I was telling Nicole Stills, right? Butler Behavioral and the Hope Line. I can call any number of agencies and then get people we send people to inpatient, outpatient, mental health recovery services. We not only send them, we drive them, we transport them, we pay for their clothing, their hygiene. We do all that stuff because that's what we can do. We're not experts on these subjects, but we can help people get. We can fill in the gaps from point A to point B, and we do tons of that every year where we say, okay, you need to go to, Beckett Springs in Westchester, okay? Nicole's got you in, okay? I called Nicole, she did your intake. Nicole goes, okay, you need a ride, okay? We'll be at 3 o'clock, okay, you need a couple changes of clothing, we'll drive you, we'll pick you up, in 5 weeks, you know what I'm saying, whatever. So we do all the details, but we work with dozens of agencies. I deliver people to Lancaster, the TCC in Columbus, the Columbus Mental Health Hospital. I mean, to all these places in Dayton, Cincinnati. So we deliver all over. And so we get people off the streets long enough to give them hope, feed them, clothe them, get them stable, pray for them, give them hope, and then help them make good decisions. Yeah. But we outsource all of those things using community resources, including Tower Browse, Brightview. And one of these people don't ask questions. You can call any of the agencies in town and ask them what does Sugartree do, and we work with every single Tower Browse, Brightview solutions. When people like Brightview, for example, I'm friends with a lot of those ladies at Brightview. Whenever they have somebody that can't get in for their appointment, or can't get home, or because medical transport fails with that, weekly we pick up people in Blanchester Courthouse. Bring them in for their appointment and take them home. We do it every week.
I was talking to a local pastor about your ministry, about before talking to you and never knowing you, and he mentioned some of the stuff that you do like that people aren't aware of.
At all, yep.
And I think one of the misconceptions in the community, and I know I'm supposed to do this later, but is that you guys provide that stuff in-house. I think it's on your building or something like that. Like there's a schedule for it.
We have 12-step programming, and anybody knows anything about 12-step programming, it's accountability. It's like AA. The only thing we do in-house is 12-step. Now we minister. I'm a pastor. I mean, I minister to people. Caleb's we minister to people. But as far as the mental health recovery, we partner. And what I was going to say earlier, 5 years ago, God gave me a vision of bridges, right? So we build bridges, and so we are not the destination, but we get people off the street, get them stable, and then get them to that destination. But one of the things that we believe in doing is advocating. So we don't just send you. We will walk hand in hand with you, deliver you, and then we won't leave you. So say rehab doesn't work out for somebody, we'll come pick them up. We'll tell them, we're not going to just leave you out to dry. I'm not going to leave you in Dayton by yourself. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody calls, we'll bring them back. We'll try it again. Righteous man falls 7 times, I'm going to leave back up. So we believe in advocating for people by taking them and doing the decent thing by walking them hand in hand where they need to go. And so we follow people through that whole step and that whole process. And my guys still go visit people that they've taken to rehab that are doing well now. My guys will go visit them, and they'll still follow through with them. Still, they come back to the ministry. It's a great thing. But people are hyper focused on what they see. But in Christianity, we walk by faith, not by sight. Nobody sees all the people that have gotten better and gotten healed and moved away from here. People only see the current people that are in crisis, right? And they tend to judge 100% of our ministry on a handful of people they still see.
But do you think it would help your perception in the community if they at least knew, even talking to you right now, and knowing that you're connected with all these organizations, you don't just try to do it in-house, you don't keep people, there's people who are getting better and healed.
Sure.
You're connected with actual service providers. If people just knew that, your perception would be maybe a little bit better in the community.
Sure. And I'm okay with that. The idea is that when people reach out, I've met with somebody said something about communicating. I've met with every single person, everybody online that is willing to listen, that has spoken poorly of Sugartree. I've met with them in person. You know what I'm saying? I'll meet with anybody, anytime, anywhere. So we try to communicate, but I just believe that private matters should be handled privately. I think social media is unfortunately a dump heap of rumors. You know what I'm saying? But yes, we can always do a better job of communicating what happens in the ministry. So, no one's without flaw, but also when you're in the middle of, kind of that, in the fight, it's hard to take time sometimes to tell everybody everything about, what's going on.
Well, to that point, Sugartree Ministries is not really a private ministry because it's in the middle of downtown and everybody sees it.
Sure.
So, you're kind of forced to see the exterior.
The visibility is probably our greatest detriment.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe so because I'm not ashamed of any single person that we serve. I'm not ashamed of any single human being. But I do understand that our visibility compared to other agencies is part of the issue people drive by. But also, we're really kind of the only agency, and I mean, the homeless shelter does a lot, and, Katie does, but we are open. We're doing something, 24/7, and that kind of brings a more visibility to our ministry as well.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, speaking from like a person who does graphic design and communication, like I would love to like make what you do more known, and
Sure,
and not
sure.
just like that Sugartree over there, but like they do great things and help communicate that. I think Emily mentioned that your website is like still has the previous director on it, and
Sure, yeah.
Things like that.
We use Facebook mostly for new stuff.
Yeah.
But it's something we could be stronger at. And the one thing I would like to add to this, and then I'll say to you, to both of you, is that I think the depth and scope and breadth of what authentic love looks like, that I'd like to tell the whole, since we're on a podcast.
Yeah. To my mom and my dad listening to the podcast now.
Yeah,
Everybody else,
Sure. But if anybody listens, I love my detractors.
You love what?
I love my detractors. The ministry's detractors, I love them as well. And I pray the best for them. And I told people in time, and people that are passionate about something, God bless them.
What is that organization?
No, our detractors.
People that
are against the ministry. People that don't like Sugartree.
Oh, detractors.
Detractors, yeah.
Okay, sure. The tractors, I was like, is that a ministry for my tractors?
No,
John Deere.
But to our detractors, the idea is that, and I've spoken with a handful of people. I am happy that they're passionate about community safety. I'm happy that they are passionate about, because I think in some capacity they want, what is best in their own perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's sad that the misinformation, lies, things that become pervasive, because I wish they would accept or know the truth about what we do, and even if they did, because I've always said, if somebody wants to disagree with us or myself philosophically, theologically, and all the information is known, we can have that disagreement.
Sure.
Like enablement is a great conversation.
Yeah.
It's a great enablement, to do or not to do, right? That is a question. It's a great question, but only if we're both dealing from the same information.
Right.
But if you're coming from a place of disinformation and malinformation, you know what I'm saying, and I'm coming from the place where I run the ministry and I know everything we do, you know what I'm saying, and you're trying to tell us what we do and we don't do, I'm like, that is just not a good place. So, but I do appreciate the passion people have, and I love all of our detractors, people I love them as well, because they are expressing their passion, and they're U.S. citizens and they're Christians, and they have a right to express their passions. I would just like to come from a place that we're on the information is the same. And that being said, is that the other thing I've always said to people is that I will only really come to the table with people and communicate if we all agree that all life is equally valuable. If there is a place of prejudice in somebody's own mind, then I would love to help educate them, but there is nothing we're going to agree on if you don't believe that every single human being, irrespective of race, color, creed, religion, if you don't believe that every life is equally valuable, then we're probably not going to have a good conversation. Yeah, and the idea is that there's a misunderstanding about what addiction, mental health looks like too, because there is autobiographical information in your mind that deteriorates with schizophrenia, with drug abuse, and all that. You could knock somebody for taking drugs. I get that, but once they've arrived at that point, they don't even recognize themselves. They're not themselves. If you've seen somebody go from mental health issues to trauma to addiction, you've seen them healed, made whole, they come back and apologize. They come back and they're fantastic human beings, you know what I'm saying? And even in the worst state, I've not met a single person at the ministry that I don't like. You know what I'm saying? But the idea is that you have to get to know somebody and not just see them on the outside. You have to get them to know detail. But like somebody said in a song one time, it's easy to hate a homeless person until you meet one. Right, the idea, but for me to see that transformation, we believe that the love of Jesus is transformational, not transactional. The world is full of transactions where if I give you this, you do this. Transformation is that your whole life, you'll go from old to new, you know what I'm saying? You'll be something different, right? And so we believe that people can be transformed, not just changed, not just reformed, but transformed, right? And so when you see that, it does us no good to keep people while they're down. There is nothing good that, no matter what poor decision somebody made, no matter how many mistakes they've made in the past, there is nothing good. There's no help, and there's no healing that's going to happen from looking at them and saying, with a critical spirit of saying, you junkie, you vagrant, like nothing. There's no healing that's going to happen from that. But when we treat them with dignity, love, kindness, compassion, when we treat them that, even if they are mean to us, even if they are destructive, that's the only way forward in my book. It is the only thing that brings healing to people.
That's like, I think one thing that we at Real Change Wilmington are trying to do is, we see the people online that just trash Sugartree Ministries. Mm-hmm. You can't be that bad. So like, we don't want to be someone that just tears things down. Like, what can we do to like fix the problem? And
sure.
So,
yeah, I tell the college students, I get to speak in front of the college, every year, and Wendy Rob's social work class and like that. And I tell people there are three things that I think every individual, should do, right? The people, if they want to begin to change the world, I'm saying, here's what you should do, right? And Christian or non-Christian, I think these are all things that you can do. One, do what's in front of you first. So many people want to create ministries and they want to create businesses and they want to just jump in and create this huge megalith, monolithic things, and then they're like we want to change the world. If you don't help the brother you do see, brothers you do see, you can't love God whom you don't see, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're not stopping by somebody helping them fix a tire on the side of the road, if you're not helping that mentally ill lady on the side of the street, you know what I'm saying? If you're not, if you're not, giving groceries to your single mother neighbor, you know what I'm saying? If you can't be trusted with little, you won't be trusted with much, right? You know what I'm saying? So do what's in front of you first. The other thing is that give beyond what is comfortable. Everybody in the world will give to their level of comfortability, but then when it costs them something more, they quit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to challenge your own comfortability, your own standards, because my theme for last year was always, raise the standard, destroy the margins. Because if we all really look at ourselves deep in the mirror, we all have these margins. Some have wider margins, some have narrow margins, but they're like, well, I'll help this person. But I would never help this person. Right? Destroy the margins. Because if you truly love unconditionally, and you truly love if you love your enemies, then you want to pray for those who persecute you, and you want to be a giver, you're going to have to not have margins. You know what I'm saying? I tell people I do this mental, Albert Einstein did these mental problems in his head. He would race trains in his mind and let him do this mental gymnastics, and I do it all the time. I'm like, if there was a burning car on the side of the road, I ask myself the question, if I ran up to the car and saw somebody inside, is there anybody that would see inside that I would go, not helping?
Yikes.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler's in the car. I'm like, that's a question. And there are people who have these margins in their mind. I believe all life is equally valuable, and it's not my job to judge whether they're valuable or not. So my prayer is that I would always pull that person out of the car, believing that God is the ultimate judge, but also that people can change. Either everybody's redeemable or no one's redeemable. Right? You know what I'm saying? So if we believe in redemption and we believe in Jesus, then we have to believe that he died once and for all, and that's a superlative word.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So the idea is, do we believe that? And if we do, then there's no one that can be inside that car. I was at a community meeting, and I asked everybody the question. I said, if you want to find your prejudice, ask yourself, is there somebody I wouldn't serve? And there are people who have that person in their mind, and I always prayed in my own heart that no matter who is in that car, or no matter who is in the dining room, that I would always serve them with the same mercy and the same compassion. And number 3 on that list is forgive, because everybody will mess up. But if you are an unforgiving person, if you will just never forgive, you're never going to help. It's just not going to be a very good time for you to help people out. Because people are going to take your money, and they're going to take your stuff, and they're going to abuse it. They're going to get it wrong, and they're going to come back. But I can tell you as being a lifer in the street ministry that there are people we've served for 25, 30 years and they God finally heals them, and you're like, thank God I didn't give up 10 years ago. Because thank God I didn't stop serving them when they made me mad. You know what I'm saying? Like, thank God when they made me so angry when I saw them. There's somebody that there's this video that's going around of one of the ladies that we serve. She gets a meal at the side door, and she goes around to the front and she chucks it on our building. I always make a challenge myself. The more people treat me terribly, I try to love them even harder. You know what I'm saying? Like, the idea is, to me, that just means that she needs more help. That's just a sign that
it reflects on her more than it reflects on you.
Yeah.
It's like what they did to the Van Gogh painting over the summer. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that with the environmental story.
Have you seen this?
You told me, I think.
Yeah, they would go and they would cut their hands and put their blood on the wall, and then they would throw soup at these paintings.
Yep.
And it's because of the oil that they use, even though the oil is a different type of oil. But
sure.
It's the same thing. Like, at the end of the day, there was more backlash to the people who were trying to do more good, and people were like, "You need to figure out what your mission is."
Yep. I agree. And so for us, those are the three things I tell people is that if you want to start, and then the other thing is I talk to people all the time that are in this kind of ministry, and when they give me the opportunity to speak, I tell them all the time is that I listened to a lady in California at Cal Berkeley give this lecture, and she was an expert on mental health and addiction. She said the problem with systems, because we believe that real change happens it's an interaction at a personal level. You know what I'm saying? It's the micro, not the macro. You know what I'm saying? It's the personal relationships. But what happens when you create systems, and churches are guilty of this, even nonprofits with that. When you lose yourself in the macro and you quit ministering to individuals, what happens is you create a country club for yourself, and that is that you create criteria for who's welcome and who's not, right? And so this lady was saying, this doctor, she was saying that what we've created is that we step over people to open the door to the clinic, close the door, and then wait for them to knock. You know what I'm saying? Like, the idea is that we want them to be well enough to come to us.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, and I talked to Pastor Bowl from Church of God, he's fantastic, this morning, and I said, here's our problem is that the gospel writers said that if everything Jesus did could be written down, there'd be not enough libraries and bookshelves to fill it, right? It'd be overfull. But what was their major impact? What was Matthew, Mark, Luke, John? What did they take away from being with Jesus for those 3 years? The individual encounters he had with broken people. Because obviously he preached the whole time. He healed people. There's all things he did, right? But what are the most memorable things about Christ's life was when he went to individuals that nobody else wanted to encounter or would help. And so outside of the margins, he went to the ugly, the difficult, the taboo. You know what I'm saying? He went to all those people and he ministered to them there outside of the margins of what culture and religion felt were okay people to minister to. He was controversial in the fact that he went on a personal level to engage and interact with people that the culture and religion at the time thought were anathemas. They were pariahs. They were taboo. They were off limits. They were outside of the margin. And so if I want to love like Jesus, I'm going to have to seek the ugly, the broken, the people that are outside of the margins, because the idea is that those are the people that, if you're able, you're going to get help. Most people that are have wherewithal, they can navigate the system. But the people who are the most broken, the most mentally ill, the people that are the people with the most crimes, the most felony, the people that can't get help are the people that are outside of the margins. Those are the people that Jesus went to.
Do you think the community is more upset about who you serve or how you serve?
It's a good question, because I had made a statement when I had met with some of these folks. I had made a statement that there are two things that Sugartree will never compromise on. One is that we believe the gospel is the answer for a broken world and broken people. And we will love and serve everybody irrespective of what they've done or where they come from. So I think there is a anger in one, the lack of accountability. But the lack of accountability to me is not, we're not a social, we do social work in some capacity. We're a Christian organization, meaning that we open the house. I'm opening my house to guests. They are family members. You know what I'm saying? Like we love them, you know. So I'm not putting them on a registry or a accounting. I'm not going to do that to them. You know what I'm saying? Name anywhere else in the world that an average citizen, you know, when you go to McDonald's, they take your name, address, and phone number. They don't, right? So if we treat people with dignity, we can't treat them differently than they would be treated anywhere else. That's prejudicial, right? And so the people don't like that, but also they don't like the idea that we won't say somebody is, currently in trouble. Well, to me, that doesn't disqualify them from food, water, air, shelter. I meet with law enforcement. I believe in justice. I believe in law enforcement, the idea, but I believe law enforcement should be reconciliatory and redemptive, not punitive. So the idea is that if I believe in law enforcement, which I do, that they will do, one of our board members is law enforcement. You know, the idea is great human being, love him dearly. But I believe he wants, when he arrests somebody, that he says, okay, let's help you get better. I believe in that kind of justice, right? You know, you need to get in trouble because trouble makes you realize that you got to change.
Sure.
I'm good with that, but let's reconcile. Let's get you redeemed. Let's get you better. But there are people out there that say, when we talk about transactional justice, they want to say that when you get in trouble, you should be hurt by it. Like if we hurt you enough, like if we punch you, you say like you're gonna, because you did something wrong. I don't believe that's the best practice. I don't think that's the right way. And people are like, name me anybody. I grew up in, we had some dysfunction. Name me anybody who every time they got in trouble with their parents, and their parents punched them square in the face.
There's a difference between corporal punishment and gentle parenting.
Yeah, and discipline, right? I believe in discipline. Now, I'll tell you right now, I give this example all the time. If I see somebody run towards a train, and I tackle them and I break their legs, I'm okay with that because it's better their legs get broken than dying by getting hit by a train. I get that. There's that parenting out there that totally needs to exist. But if every time you spill your apple juice, somebody punched you in the face, you're saying like, the idea. So what I'm saying is that if justice is reconciliatory and redemptive, and you should get in trouble, absolutely. And I trust law enforcement. I love our local law enforcement, all of them. But there are people out there that I think want people to be punished. Well, like, it is not a legitimate. I'm never going to make somebody suffer by saying, we know you did something wrong, but I'm not going to let you have food, water. I'm not going to let you have those basic needs. That's cruel and unusual. We have constitutional, amendments against cruel and unusual punishment. I believe that, not giving somebody food, water, air, and shelter, because even when you're in prison on death row, you get food, water, air, shelter, and religious services. So I am never going to be the kind of person that says, hey, you messed up, I'm going to punish you by not giving you your, by not loving you and giving you your basic human needs. I'm not going to do that. So I don't believe in that kind of punishment. I don't believe that is the right way forward.
I think you answered both sides of that pretty well. So I don't know if I kind of cut you off earlier.
You're good. No, you're
so good. I wanted to kind of go through what are the services that you offer. So at one point, I think you mentioned it, Sugartree Ministries was putting on concerts, and you had signs for Joe's Java, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
But that's not something you do currently. So what do you offer?
Yeah. So we are talk about needs-based thing like that. So our main ministries are, we serve 7 hot meals a week. We do groceries. Not only do we give out groceries on a particular Thursday, we give out groceries to the public, but anybody that needs groceries delivered, picked up 24/7, you can come to the ministry, or we'll deliver groceries to you if you're single mother, handicapped, any reason you can't, transportation, stuff like that. We do 12-step programming. Twice a week we have a 12-step meeting. We also do transportation passes for those people who need to get to health services, addiction, mental health services, or work.
So you provide the transportation, or you give them a pass?
Transit passes we buy transit passes for the Wilmington Transit. We started a landscaping company a couple of years ago that provides employment for people that come from homelessness or addiction, that are in recovery, that want to get back in the swing of work. We work on, the landscaping company has been fantastic. We do gap coverage for people with families, so if you need diapers, formula, groceries that we don't provide, or that we offer Kroger cards for that reason. We do gas cards for people that have transportation but can't afford to get to work, medical appointments or addiction service, anything like that that's necessary. We have a blanket closet. We blend blankets. We have a clothing closet where we do clothing of all kinds, year round.
You mentioned housing already? Or?
What's that?
You mentioned housing?
We have the men's drop-in shelter, and we partner with the other agencies. We do bill pay for anybody that if they need help with their rent, utility bills. Now that is something that we do based on whether we have it or not, but we do a lot of that. We also do transportation for other agencies. We're talking about Brighton type of stuff. We transport to and from inpatient, rehabilitation services. So with that, we help people move when they get a new place. Like we've had some people that have gotten out of the homeless shelter, things like that. We've helped them move over to courthouse, and when they need to move, we help them move. We provide, we bought appliances for people when they need them, microwaves, refrigerators, house, bed, and so that, anything that would be considered a necessity, we buy those things as well. And I'm sure I forgot something.
Yeah.
There's, there's a lot of things that if people need something, and obviously when people are in, desperate need, we answer the call 24/7 as far as, like I said, put people in hotels to cover gaps. Like, if the homeless shelter and or Hope House, if somebody's over full, we pay for hotel rooms for people to make sure that they get in there until they can get other services and so that.
So I've been thinking about this since the beginning of the podcast, and I have to ask. It's kind of a little bit of a funny question. So in 2020, when COVID happened and all the toilet paper was bought super fast, did you get lots of calls for people being like, "I need toilet paper"?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, our deliveries really went up. We've always done deliveries, but when we found out, I put a thing on Facebook said, "Hey, if anybody needs something, we'll deliver," because people were felt like they were locked down. We delivered to a lot of folks and the one thing that during COVID, which I'm glad you brought up, was the fact that also people don't realize that, we still do it because people get COVID. When somebody's homeless and they get COVID, where do they quarantine? So we handled, as far as I know, almost every case of homeless quarantine, during COVID by putting people in, hotels for extended, we paid for this whole stay so people weren't in public with COVID or they weren't in the shelters with COVID, so we provided all of that we did some in-house quarantine as well, but yeah. We worked hand in hand with the health department on that, and so.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, we try to meet needs, so I'm forgetting something in all those services that.
Sure.
We probably talk about those, but the idea is that we are not bound by any bureaucracy or that, so the idea is that if somebody needs something, I can answer that. Like right now, if I picked up my phone, like the other day, somebody called, pick up my phone right now and look, and I say, somebody says, "I need a bed." I can probably have that bed to them in 2 hours.
When you say you're not bound, like you're not saying that in a cocky way, you're saying that the systems that are in place have boundaries.
Yeah,
so you can work outside to help people.
And we partner well because I love the community, and I've said it in front of all of our constituencies, our other friends in government, things like that. We partner really well because what they do in the macro, when you deal with community actions, with that, the idea is what they do in the macro, they have a lot of funding, the other things like that, they can do a lot more. There's places over here that in the macro they can do a lot of things, but they have to file and apply and maneuver and so that they might get back to you in a couple of days. You know what I'm saying? Which is what they do, which is great. It's fully accountability. And that's what we're talking about accountability. I get that. That's what they do.
Sure.
Right. But when we partner with them, they can call me and say, "Hey, this person needs a microwave, or this person needs groceries right now." Or like I said, their water. Their pipes froze, need a hotel, which they'd have to apply for that money, which is good for the accountability. I'm not saying that at all, but they have to go through their steps. Whereas I can, Sugartree, I can do it right now. Somebody calls me right now, and it happens often. Somebody will call and say, this happened at our house. I need this. We can help right now. Or somebody needs a prescription, or somebody needs medical help, or something like that. Needs a bill pay. We can do it right now instead of going through that process.
I have a question about the lawn care business. Is that something that is at a point where it can actually fund some of the stuff, or is it more to just give people work and a purpose?
Yeah, so it's a great question because we're a nonprofit, and so one of my clients, who's like a dad to me, trained, he owns one of the largest landscaping companies, in the tri-state areas, with a fantastic guy. I went to him with the idea of what we were talking about, and he helped us get that started. So we were given a lot of help from the jump, but we've all agreed that the value of giving the guys the work and helping the guys and gals get the work, was more than the need for a profit. So we knew eventually that it would work out. So I will say this: at first, it was entirely front loaded, but this year the guys have started to actually be able to get back to the ministry and help. So the guys actually did really well this last season, where they've actually, we've actually turned a little bit. Now we can't. When you say profit in a ministry sense,
okay,
that money goes back to helping the ministry.
Sustain the ministry.
Right?
Yeah.
No,
Which it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Yeah, but so these guys, our guys actually were able to give back a little bit this year.
That's awesome.
So it's great. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's an opportunity for something similar, maybe with I don't know the status of it, but reopening the Joe's Java to generate income and get public to come in and see what you do? Or?
Joe's was during COVID. Joe's was a no-no, obviously, because of COVID. It's interesting because I don't know, because of accountability and things. The idea is that oftentimes people would come in and they would come in and they kind of avoid our 12-step program. They'd come to the coffee shop. Things. The idea, and so for us, we like having for everybody to be able to go to the 12-step instead of come to the coffee shop. If I had somebody that wanted to run Joe's and could do a really good job, I'd open Joe's in a second. But right now, talking about being shorthanded, we just don't have the staffing to pull it off in a way that would be meaningful.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, if I open it right now, we could probably have the lights on, but the accountability, just keep people in the building and having two different parts of the building, and you have the warming shelter open here and got Joe's open. Managing people is just hard. Yeah. And so if somebody wanted to open it and be there and do a good job and manage it, I would love to have Joe's open.
Okay. Yeah. And the concert piece as well, is that what happened with that?
It takes a lot, like I said, once again, to book and to have people. Once again, I need to have somebody that wants to do that, because right now, with the economy where it is and where we are, we spend so much of our time just helping people that it's just not a lot of space for anything else. Yeah.
So is that whole part of the building closed, or just
the concert hall
aspect?
Yeah, the concert hall is just is where our dining room is. Yeah, and then my office is actually in Joe. Joe's. I use that as an office. Like I said, but I would love for somebody that had a passion for that would want to start that, but we don't have the capacity right now with the as many needs as there are in the community and beyond. We don't have that. We're stretched way too thin to open that back up. But I mean, I'd pray that way. And if somebody really wanted to do that, I'd be all for it.
Okay. So you hear it on the podcast if you have that ability and you want to contact us about that.
1,000%. Yeah.
So next question is demographics. Who are the kind of people that you serve? Mm-hmm. What are they battling? Mm-hmm. And then how long is their stay at Sugartree usually before they move on or grow past that?
Yeah, and anybody that does demographics as far as as far as the sociologically, so that we recognize that the majority of homeless people are mentally ill, addicted, or have low acumen. Have some sort of or trauma driven with that. So the people that come to our building and typically eat dinner and some of that, and stuff like that, not all, but a majority, are probably in that, right? But then what I tell people all the time is there's other hundreds of people that we serve who are just down and out, like the people we deliver groceries to, the people we help, the people that call in. So yes, I would say the majority of in-house folks that we see that come to eat dinner, that are the ministry, probably fall within in a broad category of mentally ill, addicted, low acumen, so that low mental cognitive ability. We have a lot of folks that fall into that. But then I'd say the majority of the people we minister to that nobody ever sees because it happens outside in the community. Happens, we deliver, we help people with bills, all those things. Like hundreds of those people are just people that are regular folks that are just struggling to make it.
So we interviewed Crown Staffing a week ago, I guess, kind of 2 weeks ago. We're pretty new to this.
Yeah.
And they had mentioned that they have some people who were homeless, mm-hmm. but it seemed like by choice. Mm-hmm. They just liked that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And in their words, like to not pay bills. And in their words, meaning the Crown Staffing's words.
Sure.
But they still have employment. Like, how do you wrap your mind around? How can people wrap their mind around that? I guess.
Sure. And once again, the challenge is that it's like the people that talk about like the camps and everything like that. I always tell people all the time is that you are always going to have people who, don't want to do certain things, right? And so this idea that, but I think here's another, angle to that question.
Okay.
When people ask me,
I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just trying
no,
to understand.
no, I'm going to answer. I've thought about this a million times.
Okay, yeah.
But if somebody said there are people out there that are cheating the system, or they're a burden on the system, or whatever, so like people that somehow make money but they don't want to do it. The idea is that I tell people all the time is that after seeing the system that worked for a long time, I would never be someone that would come to a ministry like ours. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would do a side job, make cash on the side. I would apply for subsidized housing. I would get my Medicaid and all that. I mean, people who are really cheating the system and people who are really, quote unquote, the burdens on society, you never see them. Because if they are people who have learned how to get everything.
So there's a better way to cheat the system than Sugartree Ministries, is what you're saying.
20 times better, because if you had wherewithal, you had a cognitive ability of any sort.
Mm-hmm.
Get a side job that makes cash. Apply for your Medicaid, your EBT. Get on Section 8. The idea is then you have cash. Your rent subsidized forever. The idea is that people that are really, really cheating the system,
They already know how to do it.
they're living a much better life than no one wants. No one wants to live in a shelter and eat in a soup kitchen. The idea is I don't think that.
Okay.
Now, not saying that never happens, because there are some people out there that just love to be free in that capacity.
Uh-huh.
But once again, this would only apply to Sugartree as far as the enabling. If we gave people those things, the only thing you can get out of me is loaves of bread, hot meal, some groceries, and a place and a cot to sleep on. That's all maybe some transit passes to go back and forth to your medical appointments, but we're not doing anything more than that. Mm-hmm. I'm just making sure you stay alive long enough to find hope, to change and to grow and to get better. That's what I'm hoping.
So do you feel like a lot of the social stigma behind Sugartree and the negative, I guess, image that people give to you on social media comes from the idea that they have of this is what homeless is, and this fits in this box.
It's a stereotype.
This is what addiction is, and it fits in this box. But the reality of it is that sometimes they go hand in hand, and sometimes the box is over there, and what's actually happening is here.
Yeah, we ask the question all the time statistically. What percentage of the U.S. population commits felonies? And people ask it's like 1%, right? So the idea is that when you look at the homeless population or the mentally ill, right, and the accusation is the conflation of homelessness and mental illness with violent crime, right? Like people say that, hey, here comes the vagrants, here comes which I hate that word, but it's definitely a pejorative, but but the idea is that like when I see one, well, there goes the neighborhood, because this is where all the crime's happening. This is where all the terrible things happen. Well, even if you put all that together, the conflation is not even closely, remotely statistically significant of the homeless population. Even if there is a higher percentage of homeless people, mentally ill people that commit felony, even statistically, even slightly, it means that if you're making a general accusation, you're going to be wrong 97, 98% of the time. That's prejudicial in my book. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's unfounded. And then anybody in law enforcement will tell you that you have a lot of, and then we talk about recidivism. Crime in America is mostly made up of repeat offenders. Very few people, when they get to like 35 years old, decide to just fly off the rails. You know what I'm saying? Most people have a
I'm close then. Fly off the rails.
Yeah, but have a
my job security.
but have repeat criminality, right? Whether it's mental, it could be due to a lot of factors, trauma, mental. Once again, it's not even factoring in what in the world happened to these folks. Examine their lives. But the idea is that so when you look at a populace and you try to accuse all of them of all the terrible things, well, that's prejudicial. But the idea is it's not even statistically significant. And if you look at Wilmington crime statistics, which everybody loves to look at, violent crime is virtually nil. There's a high amount of property crime which has been refuted even. So I'm not even trying to speak. But the idea is that when people are addicted to drugs, they need a couple of bucks to get their high. a lot of petty stuff. That's around America. That's if you want to talk about the influx of methamphetamines and all that.
And that's just anywhere with
That's
the drug crisis.
yeah. So the idea is that you're going to see a decent amount of petty theft, which I get, right? I don't like it. Once again, I believe that, and I tell my folks all the time, if you break the law, you're subject to the law. I will visit you in jail, but I'm not going to keep you from getting in trouble, because I believe that justice is part of the restorative property. I believe that you can be redeemed by that. But violent crime is very low, below the national and the state average in Wilmington. But if you are going to blame one group of people, well, the truth is that if you ask law enforcement, there's a handful of people, who keep, committing all these crimes, right? And people were like, well, you shouldn't. And I'm like, no, I'm not. First of all, I don't believe that first of all, law enforcement knows who they are. We work with law enforcement. They'll call us and say, hey, do you know this person? I'm like, yes, I do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not keeping someone from getting in trouble.
Yeah.
But once again, even if they're in jail, they're getting food, water, air, shelter, religious services. But also, as a Christian, I am going to turn the other cheek. I'm going to love my enemy. I'm going to, pray for this persecuting me. And I'm going to love people that don't love me. And I'm going to love people that, So the idea is that I'm still going to love and serve them.
Yeah.
So nothing that you can tell me about somebody. People do this to me all the time. They're like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, nothing you're going to tell me is going to cause me not to love them. You know what I'm saying? Nothing you can tell me about a person is going to cause me not to help them with food, water, air, and shelter. So this idea that the prejudicial conflation of homeless people, addicted people, mentally ill people in crime is statistically insignificant. But also there's a lot of recidivism and repeat offenders there. So it is sad that people want to blame all of the ills of society and culture and on people who statistically aren't even relevant in that category.
So we covered this a little bit, but what are some of the common misconceptions people have of Sugartree in your mind?
Sure. Well,
that we haven't covered yet.
No. And the idea is that I think it's the visibility, right? It's when you drive by, there are people that have been prone to drive by and take pictures and exploit people with that. The idea is that whenever I look at the pictures, I look at them and I go, that person has a caseworker, they're schizophrenic. That person has a caseworker. That person has has all these mental. The idea is that not anybody in those pictures, except for maybe a couple people ever, are like hardened criminal, and definitely no one I don't feel safe around. The idea is, so this idea that people think that everybody that comes to the ministry are just terrible, dangerous human beings is just patently untrue. And once again, there is a consequence and a risk to everything in life. Good or bad consequence, everything's a risk, right? So what happens is that something's going to happen. It's inevitable, right? So once again, but that doesn't make it statistically significant or true. So people in a social media world, in a clickbait world, will take something and go, did you see so and so? Like, yeah, but that's one person out of hundreds, if not thousands, that we serve. Right, so the idea is that to say that is the norm is patently false, right? And so only if you stay in the ministry, only if you work in the when you see everybody today, you realize that if everything was so terrible, we have churches, little old ladies and old men that come in and serve every day of the week. If everything were so horrible, where are all the horror stories, and why do these ladies and gentlemen keep coming back year after year, week after week, and continue to serve? So once again, I think it's the visibility. I think that there's a prejudice that people see who we serve. They check the incarceration list, and like, I saw that person at Sugartree. But once again, I'm openly saying on your podcast, I will continue to love and serve everybody, irrespective of where they've been and what they've done, because I believe that's what Jesus called us to do. But I also believe that is the best practice. I think helping people that way helps you get forward. But on top of that, the statistics of conflating criminality with homelessness and mental illness is just patently, it's not true. It's insignificant.
Is there statistically more homeless people per capita in Wilmington than other cities?
It's a great question because that's about demographics. Here's the one thing that I think people that, and I've spoken with tons of leaders in Clinton County and in Wilmington, so that about this. Wilmington is a unique city in the way that if you look at the way it's designed, it's one way in, one way out. And I would ask this question of anybody. Name another city that you can think of where every single major institution is on one street. So the one thing I learned about Wilmington when I started working here, I grew up in Lebanon. When I started working here in Wilmington, I noticed something. Every time I came into town, I would see everybody I know. Because, like I said, name something that's not off Main or local. You like name something, south. But the idea is name something that's that's not on a main thoroughfare. One of two. You know what I'm saying? Like the idea is that so when you come into town, everybody's much more visible, right? So if you come into town and grab some toilet paper, you're going to drive by everything on the way in and the way back, right? So this idea that, but there are other cities like my town, like growing in Lebanon,
My town too.
Yeah. If I wanted to go to Kroger, I could drive in off 48, go to Kroger, and leave. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't see everybody. I don't have to drive through neighborhoods or see, but in Wilmington, so as far as statistically goes, and the other thing that Wilmington's unique, so Warren County, where else compares to Warren, Warren County. Warren County is one of the top 10 wealthiest counties in the state of Ohio. And it has like 9 cities. You know what I'm saying? The idea is that Clinton County is one of the poorest counties in Ohio, and it has 1 city. So if you were to diffuse 250,000 people in Clinton County, in Warren County, amongst all those cities, you would never see anybody, right? But when the only goods and services are in 1 city, 12,000 people, and then there's 45,000 people in the county, where does everybody have to go?
But is that a person? So
within the Wilmington. But what I'm saying though is, what my answer is saying that you're going to see a lot more people in need because Wilmington is the only show in Clinton County. There's no other place to go. Job and families here, community action with that. And then when you break down homelessness, see, people have to do their research. And I realize too is that when they release statistics on homelessness, you do a point in time count. Homelessness comes in different levels. So say you live in an RV. Well, an RV is not a house. Say you live in your car. Say you live with friends or something like that. So they all get counted as homeless. But what people are really asking is about on the street homeless, right? That number is far smaller than the other numbers. But if you say the total number of homeless, so when you really dig into the statistics, you have to realize, what are you asking? Are you asking for the number of people in Wilmington that live on the street? Or are you asking for people that are housing insecure, like, they don't have a place to live, that they don't rent, but they're living with a aunt, a grandma, or they're living in an RV or in somebody's back shed? There's a lot of those people, but if you talk about a county of 45,000 people, it becomes far less significant than if you're talking about a town of 12,000. So when you're asking the question about Wilmington, people have to realize that Wilmington is the only city in Clinton County and all the goods and services here, so you're really servicing 45,000 people, not 12,000. So people that take the perspective like, well, Wilmington used to be this, Wilmington used to be that. It's like, yeah, a rural town of 12,000 people is small. But when things blow up and the economy goes, everything goes to dumper, you're serving 45,000 people in Clinton County. And then some of the neighboring counties, like Fayette and Highland, don't have as many, their services aren't as robust either. And nobody, I tell the story all the time. The reason everybody comes to Wilmington as well in some capacity, first of all, let me put the rest. We have never brought a single soul from anywhere else into Wilmington. I don't do that. What I do though,
I was going to ask that. You jumped the gun.
Darn it. What I
stole my thunder.
What we do though is we transport people to goods and services. I've taken far more people out of Wilmington and never brought a single soul in. If there's somebody that can thrive with family, or they have a service with somebody that's in another city, we'll take them out. So I've taken 100 plus people out of town that needed to be somewhere else because they were better, but I only do it because it's better for them. But we transport people out of town every week. I've never brought anybody in. But getting back to that question about the counties with that, so the idea is that statistically, it's hard to determine, because the idea is that when they did the homeless survey, Tom Albanese did a great job. The idea is that it's hard to say, because Wilmington is a hub for these rural counties, because we have goods and services, but also I get calls all the time from other counties that don't have services, that are robust enough, and we're close enough to Dayton and Cincinnati and Columbus, that whereas you go out there. But the other problem is if you're homeless and you grew up in a rural county, you grew up in Brown, Fayette, Highlands, with that, you're not going to go to Gateway Shelter in Dayton. It's a totally different culture, and the idea is that nobody wants to go to a big city and be in an inner city, homeless shelter. So the attraction when the credit's the fan, everybody gets in trouble financially. People are prone to look at solutions in rural counties. Well, guess what? They just don't exist. So therefore, we tend to get overwhelmed with requests for people that want to come and get help here, because Wilmington does do a good job with helping people.
So you're saying statistically we are the same as every other county, but just perception-wise, because...
Well, I'm saying if it's greater, I'm saying the idea is that it depends on how you break down, what is homeless, right? The idea is there's different levels.
Sure.
The idea is that, but I'm saying, statistically, even if there was a higher number, it's because the idea is there's no other places, to go.
So people in like Warren County could go to Cincinnati or go to Dayton, but people in like Fayetteville couldn't go anywhere. They come to Wilmington.
They would come to Wilmington because they don't have anything. They don't have anything like that, And even though they have shelters they have county shelters in Fayette and Highland. The idea is that you're coming to
The Highland County shelter's been full since I was in high
well,
school.
and the county shelters get full, and so we're the only place that has any emergency housing, or so yes, we are unique in the fact that we have ministries and services here that are unique in that capacity.
Okay.
Yes, but no one is bringing anybody in. I'm just saying, but there is an attraction there because of the services that are available in Wilmington.
And that sentiment is shared by the Wilmington, not the Wilmington, but the Coalition on Homelessness.
Yeah.
They recently, I guess, made a statement saying that people are not getting bussed in.
No. It's just that when people call around for goods and services, help, they're not going to Dayton or Cincinnati because it's a totally different, it's a cultural, they're not going there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I've driven people. I worked for Gospel City for, I volunteered for them for a long time. I worked with Hope House in Middletown. I've delivered people, a million times to St. Vincent and Dayton. If you're from Wilmington, Courthouse, Fayetteville, Hillsborough, you're not going to want to go to downtown Cincy, Middletown, or Dayton because you're not going to feel like you're in a whole different
culture
world.
shock.
Culture shock, yeah. And I don't agree with and once again, if there's any prejudice there, I don't agree with it. But the idea is that people want to stay close to where they feel comfortable. Well, but in rural America, there just aren't many. Okay. There's not many services. Whereas if you go to a metropolitan area, there's tons of them. I tell people all the time, you'd be shocked at the number of people that when they call me. I had a guy call me from Hillsborough the other day, and he said, my family and I are getting ready to be homeless and all that. And I said, okay. I was like, here, call this number, call Salvation Army, call Gospel. I gave him all the numbers. Call Hope Out. Call St. Vincent will take you 24/7. No questions asked. They have a family shelter. And when they find out that where they have to go, like, oh, I don't want to, they want to be here. And so the idea is people, even against me telling them, hey, we don't have all this capacity. We don't have 24/7, sheltering in the way that they do. But there's attraction. They want to stay where they feel comfortable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you talk about like the levels of homelessness
Mm-hmm.
and what defines homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And you also talked about the idea that people have of what small town life is like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Hillsborough, so like what Hillsborough should be like, what Wilmington should be like, what these towns should be like are so dated. And the way that you've been describing it, the way that I've been thinking is these people that are saying this, they grew up in a time where if you had a family member or somebody that you knew that suffered a mental illness, they were sent away.
1,000%.
Thank God that doesn't exist anymore, because even with reform, those institutions were not.
Because you would be out of here, Emily. You'd be
in
locked
3
up somewhere.
seconds,
We'll do some history, and you're right. So in the early 1960s, they deinstitutionalized the country, and people forget that when the institutions did exist, we're a little over, and this is a true story, we're a little over maybe 100 years from euthanizing laws. Indiana just had a memorial service a couple years ago. If you were indigent, mentally handicapped or indigent, they would euthanize you. Mm-hmm. Like if you were a burden on, there were places that would actually would kill you. And like I said, the institutions, some of them were worse than some of the worst prisons ever. And then there was always the pride factor. Like you said, there were people that had family members who were, quote unquote problematic, that were addiction. They would get, pregnant, or and the families would send them, somewhere far away. And so thank God that we're seeing more public dialogue because we've destigmatized these issues, but it's also brought a lot more people into the public sphere that need help. They're not ashamed. They're not being put away. And families also aren't. Families also, because of whether they be the economy or not, also families are rejecting a lot more family members. And we have a gentleman that we took care of for years. He was an elderly gentleman with dementia. His family just dropped him off on our porch, like you would a baby in a baby box. They literally just dropped him off. 55-year-old man, dropped him off, and we took care of him for years. You know what I'm saying? So the idea is that the stigma there is gone, but also now, and I got a great answer for your response, and I've said this, I've made this joke in a long time, and people ask me, and I'll say it here, but they asked the question, I said, if I was going to write a book, I would title the book, Mayberry Wasn't That Great. And I say this only because I love...
The Rascal Flatts song.
I love Andy Griffith, I love the show, but the reality is, if you think about it, no diversity. You know what I'm saying? Women were subjugated. You know what I'm saying? This idea is that things evolve and things change. Some good, some better. But we don't live in Mayberry, and maybe we never did, because the other thing was that problems in the past tend to be kept under wraps and isolated. Now, then we talk about domestic violence, then we talk about these things, and so I think now that we're talking about them is a good thing. I think they were always real. Now they're more public. Yeah,
it's about growth. So the 60s deinstitutionalizing places for mentally handicapped, mentally ill people to go. When these places closed their door, these workers quit, and they said, good luck to all these people. And those people were anywhere from 5 years old to 90 years old, and there are still people who are living now with the repercussions of that.
Sure.
And then it's hard to, like you were saying, like the stigma between domestic violence and other abuse is that it was always swept under the rug. For a very long time, women were meant to be subservient to their husbands, and now that gender norm and that idea is changing.
Yep.
And I think people sometimes have a hard time to grasp that.
Yeah, so people think that this is what they're, and we've always said this, that people want to make their town or whatever in their own image, and the reality is that let's hope your image is really good. You know what I'm saying? If not, it can come with a lot of prejudice. The idea is, because then once again, that margin, some people will fit, but other people will not, and that's why you get the comments of, let's pack everybody up and send them on a bus and send them somewhere else. And with that, it's like you do realize that every single person has a right to exist. You know what I'm saying? Every citizen has a right to live. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody has to be born.
Yeah. So the idea is everybody has that opportunity, and so this thing is that because they don't look or act like you doesn't mean that they're not valuable. But also, even just because they're broken, I believe that every single person is intrinsically valuable, and that nothing can change that. And once again, we have the legal system in place if people break the law. But as Sugartree, we are not the law. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a law enforcement. I'm not a law officer. So the idea is that we do what everybody else does. We will help people get to justice. But it is not our. We love our law, but we're not trying to. We will uphold the laws as citizens, but we're not meant to be judge, jury, executioner, and criterion to every single person we encounter. Nor do we want to be, because love is a much easier thing to do in that capacity, and we believe that is the thing that matters most. So to bring people in, to invite them in, to not be critical, to not be this and that. So yep.
I think it's cool that you are taking responsibility for what you can do, and then you are being okay with other people being responsibility for if they take advantage of your system.
Sure. And then, like I said, we are aware of that. And once again, we would put in, we believe that, like I said, you have those interpersonal relationships. People don't see those conversations. Trust me, I had a lady today that tried to ask me for a $40 gas card. And I said, where are you going? She's like, Hillsborough. I said, no, it's not going to cost you $40 to go to Hillsborough. Then I said, why are you going to Hillsborough? And she said, well, I need my bank card. And I was like, well, your bank card doesn't get sent. It isn't at your bank. It gets mailed to you. And she's like, well, I went to my stepdad's. It's like, okay. your stepdad, if he calls me and tells me what's going on, no phone call. So I'm just saying the idea is that when people think that we don't have accountability, like I vet things all the time, but I don't do it at a macro.
Sure.
I do it at the micro, the relational level, where people have to encounter us, ask questions, and we make the decision. I take discernment any day over just pure wisdom. Let me pick the right thing in all situations. But when we know people, so once again, it's not like we don't ever tell people no. It's not like we don't ever. People have been kicked out of the ministry dozens of times. You know what I'm saying? The idea is because we always say if you're a threat to yourself or somebody else. But what we don't do is we don't do any permanent, expulsions. And also, even if we expel you, we still try to find a way to get you somewhere that can get you help, get you fed. We're usually we just do an alternative plan. But the idea is that we don't. It's not like there are no rules or no discipline. People get kicked out of the shelter. People get, all the time. We just do it at an individual level. We don't make these big macro rules where it's like thou shalt not. You know what I'm saying? The idea is we just do it at an individual level. So
it's like you were saying. It's about that personal connection.
Personal connection.
To put somebody who's already down on their times out in front and make a pariah of them.
Yep.
Probably wouldn't help their need for help anymore.
Would not. Yep.
This is a long podcast, but I feel like it's going to be good. It's all good stuff so far.
I'm sure this podcast is gonna get a lot of attention.
Hopefully good. Lee warned us before he came over that he brings a lot of controversy, so please don't hate us. We're just trying to help the community.
Don't hate Lee either, honestly.
Yeah, don't hate Lee either.
Well, but if you don't stand for your, Jesus said to be hated on account of him, right? We recognize that not everybody's going to agree with what we do, but the idea is that I would rather be a man who is hated for his convictions than loved for his his popular opinions. So.
Yep.
So, do you believe in the adage that all publicity is good publicity?
Well, the ministry has been blessed. I mean, the more people throw stones, the ministry has definitely gotten a lot more help because of it. We believe that comes because God recognizes that we're doing a good thing. And so once again, it's been a good thing to have the negativity because God takes things that are what man intended for evil, God's made good. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So next question is, what do you see as areas that Sugartree Ministry could improve?
Well, this idea that whenever and I find myself, it happens all the time.
This is more like I'm asking this question to give you a chance to not to be defensive, but to be vulnerable and just tell
sure, right.
where you guys are at. Just be real.
And so whenever you have a group of individuals who come from homelessness and addiction and stuff like that, and they are just removed from the street, right? And they are managing the day to day and doing it. It's a beautiful picture, right? But it is also hard because there are a lot of things that organizationally, I'd like to tighten up, but these guys aren't, they're maturing day by day, but they're not quite there yet. So I think we could run things, we could run a much tighter ship. And I think that's some of the other issues that people have. The idea is that you have people who are, running things and doing things that they themselves are still, struggling. And I think I think it's beautiful, but it's also can be a very easy thing to pick on.
Like the blind leading the blind.
Sure, yeah. This idea that, my guys have recovered, they do really well, but, they're not perfect. And so, we've had some incidences where we've had to take people out of leadership and, but we allow them to recover. But the idea is that, but I will say this, that they're a ragtag bunch of guys and we love them. But when the lights get turned on, they do a fantastic job at loving people and serving. But they themselves individually are not, they don't always, they make mistakes and they have their own issues. So if I could say anything that, just the maturity of our whole group and being more, just being, we always get the work done, but it would be great if we were a little more, just tighten things, just a little bit, ship her a little tighter.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes is that based on, when the warming shelter's open, it just takes so much out of everybody because we're there all the time. So sometimes the cleaning doesn't get done the way it should, because those guys are stressed out. That whereas in an organization, if the ship were tighter, people get done stuff regardless.
And you would have that stress on your plate.
Correct. And then I have to walk in and try to fix
yeah.
all that. That's a bit rough. But if we were going to trade, will I trade the place looking a little messy over people dying in the cold? 1,000%. So you take your wins where you get your wins, you take your losses where you get your losses. But if we're trading, I'll take those guys caring for people, and because those people, my guys, because they've come from it, do an excellent job of taking care of people that come from the street. Whereas if you hire people who've never dealt with any of this, you might get a little more, administrative, and you might get more operational, perfection, but you might lose the empathy and compassion. And I'd rather have my guys who are a little busted and a little peculiar over a tighter ship. So
do those guys have jobs outside of the ministry then? Or are they the guys that are employed with the lawn service?
Yeah, a lot of those guys do the lawn service, but when you think about what we do in a week, all of my guys who work at the ministry, they put in a tremendous amount of hours.
You said there's 10, right?
Well, yeah, 10 guys that live with us. Some of those guys are, some of those guys are there because they're trying to get better. Other guys, but my main core of guys, they put in a ton of hours a week.
And that's their full-time job then?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they do, yeah. I wouldn't, they work a lot.
Well, I'd imagine it's a lot of work serving 7 hot meals a day, or not a day,
A week.
And
But running.
How much do you eat, Emily?
running the shelter, taking the trash out,
hour.
keeping the bathrooms clean, managing people.
Do they get paid for that?
Well, it is all room and board. They get, and then, like I said, they pay their cell phone bills. Some of my guys do get a paycheck. Some of my upper guys get a paycheck. So yeah. Do
you fear that that's like keeping them there almost, or could they go outside of that?
When we had this conversation with some other people, the reality is that you'd have to meet them, right?
Sure.
Because quite a few of my guys aren't going to go. Probably they're tweeners. They're older guys who aren't old enough to be in senior living, but they're injured or broken enough they're not going to get a full-time job. So the idea is that we're lucky to have them, but I think they are blessed to have a home. And I always say they're not homeless because they have a home with us. But they want to be, and they want to serve, and they love what they do. So, yeah, I think it's the place for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I just ask you a question just to clear something up, because I've seen things on Facebook and I've looked on your website. When you do groceries on Thursday, do you hand out grocery boxes, or do you do like a free shopping style?
So we run a line, and so when you sign the book, grab a box or a bag, you go through the stations, and you can pick based on what we have available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had seen the rumors. I'm on social media. I'm 24, so I grew up in that age, and it's there. I know you said you hate the word enable, but for the quote of the Facebook is enabling people by allowing them to free shop the same way we do at Kroger, but for no money.
Whatever we get donated. Now think about this. Think about how crazy, how ludicrous this is. The idea is that there is an entire section of people in this world that live on what is unused and thrown away by people who have means. Mm-hmm. Everything we get is a donation that wasn't used by somebody else, or was given with the intent of giving away. So when you say shop at Kroger, no, we put say somebody donates apples, we put apples out. If there's a week where nobody gives apples, there's no apples out there. So people can pick from and it's a limited quantity. You can have 2 apples, you can have a box of this. So when you walk out of there, it's not enough. I mean, it will keep you alive. We're not giving people, nobody can get unlimited what they want. They can't pick what they,
It's essentially how community action does. You get a box of stuff, but instead of saying you get this the same everybody else, you kind of give them a little bit of freedom to that.
Yeah, and also, when Kroger donates meat and everything like that, who are we to say, so we put the meat out and somebody can take, if they want a pork chop or they want chicken breast, they can take what they want, right? I mean, but once again, that's different. So if we were a humanitarian, doesn't want to be humanitarian, but a machine, great. You know what I'm saying? But the idea is it's God's house. They're our friends. They're our neighbors. We are blessing them with what we have, what we're given. And what I tell everybody that criticizes us, everybody that donates to us, that are Christians, that believe what we do, they believe in that. they believe that we're all brothers and sisters, we're family. You know, the idea is we're not inviting people in to offer them a service. We're saying we've been blessed, sharing our blessing, and we love you, and take what God's given us. God gives good gifts. Take it because we want you to have it. So what if it, even if it were extravagant, if we have the ability, it's what God wants us to give, then we give it freely. We were given it freely, we give freely, and like I said, and I can tell you time and time again, whenever we give freely, God blesses us more. We try to close our fist, God just shuts the door. So once again, the idea is that we are not attempting to bring people in a social work sense where we're trying to just mill them through or get them a box. We're saying this is God's house. Come enjoy the blessing. We love you. We want to take care of you. We love you too, because so that ability to pick and choose is awesome, because it's a blessing to do. Once again, what was given to us under the premise that we would love and serve people individually, not just as not a mechanized, just handing out pre-packed boxes.
Right. It's not another way to strip away humanity. It's
dignity.
To kind of give that normalcy.
Yeah, normalcy. Yeah, the dignity of being able to pick your own stuff. And like I said, but everybody that donates to us knows that that's what we do, right? So we're not giving under false pretenses that somebody gives us this stuff. We're like, well, there's only what you do with it. It's freely given. Freely we give. We're just being a blessing. We're opening God's house to His children, not. So
I want to end with the question of how do you think Real Change Wilmington could help what you're doing, or maybe you giving us feedback on what we could do better. But before I do that, there's one more community thing that I want to address. I think it would be good to maybe just squash it or just talk about it.
Sure.
And again, I'm not on social media, so Emily had to find this for me. But I guess there's a notion that people are doing, you're enabling addiction, and people are doing drugs in your facility, and there are needles around. I don't know anything about that, but I guess that's out there. So
sure.
Can you address that?
Sure. So one of the things is that first of all, anybody that reads a newspaper or goes online, looks at news, so that the opioid, the fentanyl, the methamphetamine crisis is overwhelming in this country. The idea is that drugs are everywhere. People think about like their towns, like my town is, trust me, I can go to your town and find where those things exist. And so we, a long time ago, had our gazebo in the front, and people would sit on the gazebo out front. People would drive by and be like, oh, look at the homeless people. They'd like make fun of them. Well, we made a compromise a while back that we would move. Once again, I'm not ashamed of our folks. I'm not, but we said, okay, how can we be better neighbors, listen to the community and stuff like that? What can we do? And so we moved our gazebo to the side, and we built a gate, gate that opens and closes at night and everything like that. But during the day, and also the city and other places, the gazebos around town, people were finding needles in the park and everything like that. And they closed down a couple gazebos and everything like that. And so the question is that if you are truly homeless, where do you go? Well, people would say people would go to the laundromat, people go to the business, so that, it's like, where do they go? Where do they go when they're homeless? And the idea is that we believe that everybody should have some place to exist, right? And so we open up our gazebo during the day, but we're open for meals, we're open when the worship is open, so that, but the gazebo is a place for people to be. It is not something that people do drugs all over, right? And so this idea that we enable people, people do drugs in bathrooms and walk into big lots, you can go anywhere. Right, and so I think it's awfully convenient to accuse Sugartree of the fact that we're enabling people to do drugs. Drugs are being done all over. You know what I'm saying? So this idea is that we don't allow for it. We expressly forbid it. We have definitely kick people out. In the knowing that they've done. We make a rule that don't bring your junk in here. In the building, we don't want drugs, we don't want weapons, we don't want anything in the building. We practice the building, but when our gazebo's open, but obviously there's eyes and ears too. People tell us all the time. We talk to people if they get, if they do things. So once again, I think it's the same problem everywhere, but I think it's just some fodder for people to look at. But as far as us as a being, I don't hear about it happening in our place very often. Now, the other thing I will say, if it helps the community feel better, everybody knows about this. We're getting ready to spend. I just wrote a check for $17,000 to put in cameras on all around our facility, because we take the drug thing very seriously. So the idea is that in law enforcement will be able to look at that. One of our, not all of law enforcement, but somebody in law enforcement will be able to look at that. And so once again, we don't want it to happen on our facility. We don't endorse drug use. Matter of fact, we exist as a facility. We send people to rehab. So once again, to the assumption that it happens there, how does that make us different than any other public place? But also, we are actively trying to get people into rehab. We vet people. We check people. So the idea is to say that because it happens there, if it does, that it's some sort of monumental error. It's like it's like the idea is, but we are installing cameras all over. We're looking for more law enforcement in that case, because once again, if somebody's doing drugs there, I'm okay calling the cops on them.
Because it's not just hurting them; it could hurt
anybody. Yeah, we don't want it. Yeah, whenever I see needles, we're part of the Ann and Vance, who does a fantastic job. We love Ann, code enforcement officer.
Code enforcement, yeah.
Yeah, we love Ann. We've worked with Ann, and every time she's had a community, we send guys to the community cleanup, guys to the community cleanup. We want to be part of this community. So when I see a needle somewhere, I'm upset, right? And so we're putting those cameras in. I'll do anything it takes to try to get to try to get rid of those things. What I'm saying? The idea is I don't like it either. We have rules against drugs being in the facility. We just like any other facility. We don't want drugs, we don't want weapons or anything like that. It just happens that the populace we deal with, though, is more prone to those things. But where do you want them? Or do you want them at our place, where we're trying to help them? Or would you rather them be
loose
all over in public, right? So the idea for me is I love them and I want to help them. So I'm okay with them being with us, even though they're broken, but even though they have issues. So
you think it's just an easy finger to point?
Easy picking. That's low hanging fruit, because you can find you probably people doing drugs anywhere. It's an epidemic across the country, all over the world.
I know that was the last question, but and I can edit this out if you want me to. There has been talk that you guys are thinking of relocating.
Oh, I'll answer that one publicly all day, all day.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, we have a lease with Buckley Brothers. Fantastic, our landlords. We've been there for quite a long time. We love our facility. We have no plans to move. Nor I've not approached anybody, not talked to anybody. Because if you think about our facility, we built that facility over 15 years. We've got a walk-in refrigerator, freezer. We have ovens. That. If people talk about us moving like it's just like we could just move, well, the reality is I have no reason to move. We have a great location. Number two, on top of whatever it would cost, because real estate is stupid expensive. If we were to move, it would cost us $150,000, $200,000 more to move. You're
just
not
the process of moving.
Yeah, the process. You're not pick all that stuff up and just move it for nothing, right? So the idea is that it just doesn't make any sense. That rumor was completely unfounded. You talk about mis or disinformation. There was no inkling of truth to that rumor, and whoever started that totally didn't know what they're talking about. So once again, there was nothing to that rumor. Now in foresight, I will tell you that that moving forward, I think it's inevitable that we would want more robust services, and we'll grow into that. So, is there a chance that in the future that we could, build something or do something? I think that's always a possibility, right? But right now we have nothing in the books to move. But you always have to plan for the future. You always have to be thinking about what is next. So.
I have the really hard job of editing this podcast, and one of the things we structured is like having a hook in the beginning, and there's like so many fire things that you've said that I have no idea what to pull out.
I've been taking notes.
Have you been taking notes? Good.
I've got a couple. I think that you said, I think that it just fits with the flow of the podcast. He said at one point, we believe that real change happens at a personal level.
Yeah,
really
that's
like
something
that.
Yeah.
And I really like, and the other one I wrote down was, if I want to love like Jesus, it's the ugly, it's the broken, the people outside of the margins.
Yeah, and we believe that. And I think that's what makes it so controversial, is that someone is going to have to leave There's a story that goes that Jesus was if you look at who Jesus was most angry about, he was most angry at religious people. People who said they knew God, but then treated people like garbage, right? Didn't help, people that didn't fit into the religious order. And so this idea that there was a story that the priests in the temple built these underground, these tunnels over that, so they could do their priestly duties without seeing the people laying on the steps, they wouldn't minister. Well, Jesus went to those people on the steps, he went to the people in town. But the idea is that somebody is going to have to minister to people that are outside of those margins, and people have their margins, they don't want them to be messed with, right? The idea is, and so the moment I love or serve somebody, the ministry does that is outside of the margins, people are going to accuse us of being, I've had people tell me, message me saying I'm killing children, I'm destroying the city, that I'm, that I'm destroying everything that's good in this community and everything like that. And it's,
Does that ever get overwhelming for you mentally?
I mean, if we're all being honest, there's a couple of years ago where I sat at a stoplight and I've never had a mental break, but I was as close as ever because I was pulled into a meeting where, I thought I was there to help the community, and then, 20 people told me they were going to, shut the ministry down. They were going to, they were going to put us out, and, we were never going to, do anything ever again. And so, yeah, and because this is my calling, it's my life's work, I take that very seriously. So, but I also trust God is greater than our circumstance. So, I just believe that He's going to do it, and it's going to work, and that we're being blessed because we're doing the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, last thing, feedback on what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
So I don't know if you've seen the website.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
So we have the website, and we're launching a mobile app as well.
Great.
For Apple and Android.
Yeah.
Do most people have cell phones or?
Oh, cell phones everybody has one now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Because that's the other thing that I tell people all the time is that one thing that we do as a ministry is that because have you ever talked about the internet? We talk about food, water, air, shelter, and Jesus. That people are going to add the internet because you won't be able to do anything without it in the future. And so they give out cell phones are given out for free. The government funds cell phones even with data now because if you want to work at Amazon or somewhere it's not, you don't have to have it, but a lot of these places, we love Amazon. They support the ministry as well, which is great. But I've helped people on their phones fill out things to work at Amazon and other places. So the idea is that to get a job you really need a cell phone and emails with that. So it's understanding that. But most people, I did a missionary work in. I've been in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Dominican, even quite a few years ago, and everybody has cell phones. It's like a
good to know. So we're not going to waste a bunch of money on print stuff then.
Yeah, no, the internet's the way I'd go, and I think your Instagram page is great, and I think it's the fact that you can watch you can see the podcast, and you can just listen to it when you instead of having to go somewhere.
Yeah.
That was huge. Because all of a sudden, I'll just turn my audio on and I can listen to it.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah, I was able to listen
So you've
to
been
that.
listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Our number one fan. Where have you been?
Yeah. It is fantastic because to get the truth out there.
Yeah.
To get useful information.
Or truth, or just first-hand
first-hand
information.
Yeah.
We're a completely unbiased source.
Sure.
Well, I'm not, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's great. And also the idea is that once again,
If I gotta be nice to people,
if you can give people the ammunition to make a good decision, I think that's powerful, right? I think it's what journalism was supposed to be, right? Is that the unbiased journalism of the idea is that give people the information, so they can make an educated decision.
Yeah.
Or form an opinion that's educated.
Yeah.
And not be biased, right? So the idea is that you hear from this, because once again, I've always said this. I am not angered by opposition. You know what I'm saying? Because I love a good fight. I love people that are passionate about what they stand for. But I would sit with anybody. I'd sit across from anybody, and even if you invited somebody to this podcast, I would be fine with that as long as their information is correct. Because if we disagree on what is truthful, then that's okay. But if somebody is trying to fight back or try to throw, lob, missiles with bad information or false information,
it's disheartening.
It's just troubling, right? Because the idea is that the old saying that the lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. You know what I'm saying? The idea is that more people will see the mis and dis and malinformation
Yeah.
then they'll hear the truth. And I don't jump into social media at all, because once again, there is no way you can articulate the nuance and the depth of what we do in a single social media response.
Yeah.
And also to protect the individuals that we serve,
Mm-hmm.
I will not do any bad or good exploitation of anyone. Because there's a lot of times I could refute things people say, but I would have to then exploit somebody to do it, and I won't do it. I'd rather be accused of all kinds of terrible things than to out somebody that we've tried to help.
Yeah, that's admirable for sure.
So I'd much rather be in that position. To know that I did the right thing and the ministry did the right thing. Because whatever people think, let them have their opinions, you know what I'm saying? Because people are allowed to have them, and they have every opportunity to seek out. Now, the only thing I will do, and I did it the other day, somebody was talking about like some of the gym or something like that, see people through the ministry, is I just went online. If you see me interject at all online, I'll say, here's my number, here's the Sugartree Facebook page.
I've seen that.
Yeah, message me.
So last night I was on Facebook searching through, I'm in a lot of groups for Wilmington, and there is one group, I won't mention it by name, that's very anti-Sugartree, and there's a lot of groups that are very like, here's the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to see like the mixed reviews of what people in the community had to say, and I saw it a few times where you were commenting and you were like, look, here's my number, let's talk. That's pretty cool.
Let's do it. Yeah, because it will never be handled well in a social media setting.
And I mean, when you speak through text messaging or instant messaging or on social media posts, people are going to read that and take that the way they want to take it.
Sure.
And that could not be your tone at all.
Yeah, the inherent implicit bias, even all those things that the idea is that 7% of communication is nonverbal, right? So the idea is that when you sit across from somebody, and it's so much harder to lob these accusations at people when you sit right across from them.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people bold on Facebook, but when you encounter them in person, they're far less. They don't throw as many words around.
Yeah, Emily likes to make sport of getting into online fights. I do not follow her on Facebook.
You don't even have a Facebook, as far as you've told me.
Well, we're working on. I'm not gonna get one now. Yeah.
So I used to be really bad about it. I am still kind of bad about it, but it's my New Year's resolution to quit fighting with people on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, I think we fight for truth, and I think that's a good thing. And the idea is that I have to check the merit of the argument. And the question is, as I always say this, that, one of the best pieces of wisdom I was ever given is that if you win a fight, what do you really win? You know what I'm saying? And is it worth winning a fight and losing a friendship?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You know what I'm saying? I don't believe that winning the fight and losing the relationship is ever worth that. So you know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather not. I'd rather lose the fight and keep the friendship than I would to win the fight and lose the friendship. So now online, you don't know who the people are. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just trying to remind myself that anybody's gonna disagree with me, and at some point, what I have to say is not going to change them, because they're just going to be like, wow, just another young kid out here whose opinion doesn't matter.
And Emily's growing too. She came in today and said that she was tempted to interject last night on a comment, or this morning decided not to. So she is growing. I'm proud of her.
Yeah, there was an incident.
Real change right here, people.
we were all over social media again this morning, but it wasn't us. It was our friends at Wilmington Church of God that helped a lady in a mental health crisis and got her home, and yet they still accused us of somehow, destroying the city. I don't know what, but it was interesting that it wasn't even us that did it. Friends of ours did it, which is great, which I'm glad. But once again, because we have the men's shelter, because we have people outside, because we have people that come to our building, the idea is the visibility that taking care of women, people agree with that. Taking care of families, people agree with that, right? But when the majority of our folks that we see are men, we have the men's shelter, which if you want to talk about a whole other podcast you guys can do. Statistically, I don't know if you've seen the book Red Pill, Blue Pill, or something, but the idea is the feminism versus, whatever the masculine version is, there's a name for that. But the idea is, Yeah, this lady was a feminist, and she really now if you listen to Jordan Peterson and all, but this lady was a feminist, and she had this. She was shocked when she saw a guy that was stumping for male rights and all that. And she's like, and then she dug a little bit deeper, and she realized that the majority of men die in war. You know what I'm saying? 99% of bricklayers are men. You know, so there's all these things that suicide, homelessness, and all that. But the other interesting part that I think is missing in all this, and not fighting for men here, but just saying that people are far more compassionate, towards women and children, towards so when you deal with a lot of homeless men, there's also these people don't just invite men into their home because they feel like men are scary, they're going to cost the idea, and so whereas a lot of people, women are taken into, but the negative side of that, which I think could be a whole other podcast, is finding somebody is that when people, I was on a coalition in town about sex trafficking, and they were asking like is sex trafficking happening in Wilmington? And I said absolutely, and they were like, well, what does it look like? And I said it doesn't look like what the movies make it look like. What happens in sex trafficking in small town America is that women that are homeless that need drugs will get into a trap house. The dealer will supply them with drugs in exchange for sex, but then kind of make them subservient, like get them addicted and things like that. So the idea is that basically they have to perform to have a place to live. So unfortunately, not every woman and child is taken in by families that take care of them, or women's shelters. There's a lot of women who don't appear homeless because they're being used as sex slaves in trap houses.
Yikes.
And like let's go ahead.
No, you're good.
It's like you were saying, like this difference between like feminism and whatever men have.
Whatever that is. Yeah. There's a name, but I can't remember.
There's like this idea of like hyper-feminism. So like it's women above men, and that's not what feminism is. Not the definition of feminism is that we're equal.
Equal, yeah, sure.
And that's great. But when you talk about things like sex trafficking and abuse and emotion, people forget that the same things that are happening to women are happening to men.
Absolutely.
And that it's like this whole thing right now is like it's okay for men to cry, and like there's been this whole lifestyle that it's not okay for men to be that way. But I think it's great that like you're out here saying like if this happens to men, it happens to women, it happens to people. It's the human experience.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the idea is that irrespective of what happened, we believe what trauma. We believe that everybody deserves to land in a safe place and to be loved and be taken care of. I mean, that's the crux of it, is that whether you're a career criminal or you're a pedophile or you're any of this, the idea is that everyone deserves their basic human rights to be met, and that's controversial to a lot of people. That's a huge controversy, but that is reflective of the love that's God put in me, because I believe everybody can be redeemed. So if I only looked at people for where they are now, of course, there's a lot of easy judgment calls. But heaven help any of us that are rejected forever because of our worst day.
Right. And that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be awful, right? Imagine if you had a bad day or something. And once again, and you can say all this without justifying what somebody's done.
Yeah.
Of course I find those abhorrent. They're awful. But when you realize, in Christians, we all believe that we're sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. We recognize that it's only through His grace that we can be redeemed. So the idea is that we believe when we look at people that are created by God, we believe they can be healed and redeemed. That's our impetus, not their current condition. Because like I said, heaven help us. We walk by faith, not by sight. Imagine walking around the world and you judge every single person by their worst day. I tell people all the time is that when you see people that have gone through a lot of trauma, they tend to introduce themselves by their maladies. Like, I'm a meth addict, or I'm a... Like, the idea is, instead of saying...
They're not people first.
Yeah, they're not people first. They're their addiction or their shortcomings first.
Yeah.
Or what they were victimized by. I'm my parents are divorced. Like, they introduce themselves by their trauma instead of saying, I'm a human being, I'm a child of God. You know what I'm saying? That's what we like to see people see, but we believe that everybody can be redeemed and healed. Not everybody believes that.
So how can the community help you? I know a lot of people are trying to hurt you or cast stones, but how can the community help you?
I think it's like anything else. I believe the people that are the most negative, once again, I love them as well. If they needed help, I'd help them. If any of them fell and struggled, I would help them in a heartbeat without criticism or judgment. I guarantee that 100%, no matter who they are, no matter how vitriolic or polemical they've been towards me or the ministry, I love them all the same. But I think they are the most vocal, so I think they get a lot of attention. I think they are a very small minority. I don't think the majority. But as far as the community goes, continue to help us, see and meet the needs, because we don't have all the great ideas. We had a lady, one of our own ladies that does the grocery give out, that said, "Hey, we needed blankets," and so we started a blanket closet. But I make this rule, and it's something that was a piece of wisdom given to me a long time ago. If you ever want to know how to help a ministry, a street ministry, think to yourself and say, if I need it, somebody else needs it. So if you want to know how to donate, do you like clean socks? I love clean socks. You know what I'm saying? You like clean underwear? Love clean underwear. You like food? I love food. You know what I'm saying? The idea is continue to help us meet those needs by giving, empathetically. You know what I'm saying? By saying, if I need something, this is what they need. But here's the missing link, and it's not the tangible, it's the intangible. If you need a friend, be a friend. Come down to the ministry and sit with people while they eat. Chat with them. Treat them with dignity and humanity. Love on music. Like, I can get a lot of people to serve a meal. I can get a lot of people to push a broom. I would love more people that just want to interact and engage and love people and encourage them when they're down. I think that is the most beautiful. Now, trust me, I love all the people that work. I'm a driven guy like that. I love having tasks and things like that. So, but I'm saying, but the idea is, I love interacting with people while I'm doing a task. Like, I'll take people with me on a ride. That's how I've had more great ministry talks, driving people to rehab or taking them to the hospital. Those are always great times to have them in a car.
Yeah, doing life with them.
Yeah, doing life with them. But whatever in your heart and mind that you would want, just do that for somebody else.
Yeah. And
I think that's the best way forward. That's how the ministry grows and it gets better. And that is once again, we exist as a community center. Come on in. We do open volunteering. People ask all the time, like, come on in. And if we have too many people that want to help, go chat with folks.
Yeah.
We talk about Pastor Rich Bowl. He came and played Connect 4 with people. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. So the idea, you don't have to be the most creative person in the entire world, but just be willing and care.
Yeah.
And I think the world will change, in a nanosecond. Because I'll give you this little piece of advice. You get to talk about Real Change Wilmington, which I love the name. I want to throw an idea out here that I hope blows your mind. And that is that, they asked Jesus what are the two greatest commandments. He said, love the Lord your God with your heart, with all your heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. But then he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And he said all the prophets of the law, that the entirety of history and humanity will hang on those two things. That those things are so powerful that the whole of humanity and everything will hang on those two things. But it really made me think about something. If everybody loved their neighbor as themselves right now, instantaneously, war would end, hunger would end, poverty would, right now. Mm-hmm. So if everybody would love one other person as much as they love themselves, all the ills in the world would disappear.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you want to know how to change, love love that one person. Jesus left the 99 for one, but you love that one person as much as you love your. That's the question we're talking about, and I'll add a caveat to that. Most everybody loves people to the extent that they're comfortable. Mm-hmm. But when you love yourself, what do? You love yourself through it all. Mm-hmm. When you're at your worst day, you love yourself even more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You become more selfish when you're sick. You know what I'm saying? So the idea is that when you encounter broken people, you got to love them more than you love your comfortability. Because I'm going to ask you this question, and I'll ask you just one question before we end here. I'll ask you one question. Is your comfortability worth more? Is your comfortability worth more than the soul of another human? And there are a lot of people that think so, and I say no.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather be uncomfortable and somebody be well fed and taken care of than I would be have my comfortability and watch somebody die in the street. So
I would say too, just getting engaged. So instead of criticizing and like sitting at home criticizing or sitting at home just dreaming and waiting for perfection, like just do something. Get out there, go.
Yeah, do what's in front of you first.
Yeah,
back to your point. Help in some way.
Right.
Right. And the other thing is that if you don't like what somebody does, I tell people all the time, criticism is so easy to tear down, hard to build.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And do it your way.
Yeah.
And here's the good news about living in a culture that's, whether you like capitalism or not, here's the good news. If you do a good job, it'll work.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it won't. So if you want to figure out whether your idea is good or not, put it out there and see what happens. But if you want to do it your way and you have the answers, try it. But if it doesn't work, then, and obviously we're very happy. We're in our 25th year of the ministry. So, we believe that what we're doing is working. So, that it matters to a lot of people.
All right, Lee, thanks for joining us on the Real Change Wilmington podcast. I hope people are informed listening to this, and even if they still hate you afterwards, at least they hate you with full knowledge of why they hate you.
Yes, thank you. Hate me for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
That does it for our podcast today, folks. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Hopefully helped inform your opinion of Sugartree Ministry and Our Father's Kitchen, and giving you just a little bit more insight into this organization that is in the middle of our community.
Remember to follow us on social media. We do have a Facebook and an Instagram. Our Facebook is Real Change Wilmington, and our Instagram is all one word at Real Change Wilmington. We also have a YouTube channel where we post these podcasts. So keep up to date with us, see what we're doing, who's coming on the podcast, and maybe some merch opportunities.
Yeah, we're excited about Real Change. So until next time, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm Emily Spencer.
Keep it real, Wilmington.